So hello and welcome to Detention live from the RPG Academy podcast. My name is Michael and I'm here tonight with my regular co-host Chris and a special guest co-host Geoffrey, and we are going to do Detention live. We're going to do some silly improv games and talk about role-playing game stuff and generally have some fun. So Chris, say hello to everyone. Tell them who you are.
Hello, everyone. Aside from being the regular co-host here, I am also the game master for the Redemption podcast. I did actually talk with some people on Twitter, and I still am claiming longest running Star Wars AP. Nobody has actually challenged me, so still winning.
That's right. And every day it goes, the less likely someone will be able to challenge that.
Absolutely.
It's like you're like the Undertaker in WWE. You like have this long running streak that no one will ever be able to defeat.
So far.
And joining us tonight is our special guest co-host, Geoffrey Golden. Geoffrey, say hello to everyone. Tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Geoffrey. I'm a narrative designer for video games and a TTRPG creator. I've written for Capcom, Square Enix, Disney Interactive, and indie studios around the world. And some of my tabletop projects include Helm Greycastle for Image Comics and Wet Hot American Summer Fantasy Camp.
Fantastic. Well, we're really happy to have you with us tonight. We're going to kick things off as we always do with extracurricular. And this is where we just talk a little bit about whatever's going on in our lives that we're willing to share with strangers on the internet. So it can be books you've read, shows you're watching, movies, albums, if you're into music, just really anything and everything that you feel like sharing. Chris, I'll start with you tonight, sir. What have you been up to, buddy?
A lot.
Okay.
Very busy right now. TV-wise, been watching Visions. Star Wars Visions. I'm not going to be the most positive about that one. Not my thing, but hopefully it's somebody else's thing. Wife and I are watching the reboot of Charmed.
I didn't know there was a reboot of Charmed.
I had heard vaguely that there was a reboot of Charmed.
It's on Netflix. Surprisingly, it's pretty good.
Hey.
I actually am I've been pretty much enjoying it. Other than that, I've been taking long walks in the woods with a couple friends. Well, close. No, not even close. We're pretending to hunt geese, but every time we go out, we see ducks, deer, or muskrats, and none of which do us any good. So, like I said, we're pretending to hunt geese, mostly sitting out in the woods, staring at decoys, blowing into the little goose calls, and watching other things fly around.
Do you have the dog, the snickering dog? That's really important for hunting a fowl.
I wish I did. No, I have a 17-year-old and a kayak. Technically, it's a friend of mine's kid, and they bring their kayak in case we have to go out in the water, which so far means we've carried a kayak in and out of the woods, and that's about it. But we've had some fun. We've made some devices to retrieve our imaginary geese that we're getting. Otherwise, just having fun, kind of hanging out, just relaxing, because hunting geese, you can actually sit there and chit chat. You don't actually have to be like super quiet. So you sit there and you chit chat, play cards until something comes along, and then you try to make them come to you. And because I said, my goose calls worked really well in calling in ducks and deer.
Your calibration is a little bit off. You need to go up or down a notch on that.
Yeah. So if you want to hunt any of those, I guess I'm your guy to take with you. But not for geese. So.
Nice. All right. Well, it's happy to have you back with me tonight. Excuse me. It's been a little while since we've had the show. Just life gotten in the way, vacations, my internet, some other things like that. So it's been too long since we've chatted. Always a pleasure. So happy to have you with us tonight. And then Geoffrey, let's talk a little bit about what you've been up to, buddy.
I'm glad to be part of this reunion. This is a very emotional reunion episode for the two of you.
Well,
that's very cool.
Because of you. You were the cream in this Oreo sandwich that without you would just be two crackers.
I brought you together. That's so cool. I'm honored and I'm thrilled. This is great. The emotional, there's a lot of emotional stakes. This is like the Fresh Prince reunion. Like we've all brought together after such a long time.
And surprise, we have the original Aunt Viv with us tonight. Oh, no, sorry.
Drama. We got to settle that drama. No, again?
Again.
Oh, God, that's horrible. Poor Aunt Viv.
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, let's see. What if so yeah, you're talking about media diet. Well, I was also recently surprised by a Netflix reboot. I recently watched the new He-Man, and I was not a fan necessarily of the original He-Man, but my wife was out of town, and it was like, what should I do with my life? Oh, I know. I'll watch this He-Man show on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised because the smart thing that they did with it was make it feel as much like the original cartoon as possible, with just some polish on the animation and some maturing of the themes and the storytelling. But the puns are there. Like, they didn't try to like completely wipe the slate clean. They just made a Saturday morning cartoon for adults. And it's something I've said for a long time that people would want. My generation would absolutely want that. We don't necessarily need Transformers as like a big, disgusting, CG monster. Like, we could just have you could just do the cartoon again, but just age it up for the people who grew up with it. So anyway, I was pleasantly surprised. I think they did right by it, and I'm looking forward to the second half.
Rumor has it early 2022, probably February.
Great. Yep. Well, I can wait, and I will wait. That's what I'll do. I'm reading a really good comic right now that I think you guys would enjoy. It's called Orcs in Space, and it was created. It's for Oni Press, and it was created by Justin Roiland, who did Rick and Morty. And basically, the premise is that like 3 D&D type orcs who are they're not top orcs. These are like low level orcs, accidentally hijack the equivalent of a Star Trek spaceship. And all of the Federation, in this case, the comic, they're called Starbleep. All of Starbleep is after them, but they are sort of, through no fault of their own, sort of evading them in funny and cool ways. So it's fun, and it's got a bit of action. It's really well illustrated. And I really enjoyed Orcs in Space. It's a really good comic.
Nice.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Anything
what have you been up to, Michael?
Oh, okay. A whole bunch. I haven't been doing a lot of the regular streaming during the weekdays for video games. I've been back DoorDashing just about every day, trying to make some extra money and pay off some bills. That's going to continue for the foreseeable future, but I do have plans to eventually get back to that. TV-wise, we binged the entire Midnight Mass, which came out just a couple of days ago on Netflix by Matt Flanagan, who has done some really good Stephen King adaptations. This is very much a Stephen King story, but not by Stephen King. Really well done. Probably an episode too long, which is kind of a standard for Netflix, I think. It's 7 episodes. It could really be 6, maybe even a really tight 5. But it's got some really good moments. It goes in some places that you don't expect. It goes in some other places you do expect, but there's enough track laid that you feel kind of smart because you saw it coming. And it gets kind of deep and kind of dark. Like, it's not quite a happy ending story, and there's a lot of conversation about death, both because it's happening and just people have felt the tragedy. I think that's the Stephen King feels, that these are some broken people forced in this just supernatural sort of situation. But it's really good. I would definitely recommend it. Titans on HBOMAX. When this show was first came out, I did not like the look of it. I watched the pilot and was actively like, no, this is not for me. And so I kind of fell off of it. I watched Doom Patrol. I watched the first full season of Doom Patrol, most of the second, and then I kind of fell off of it as well. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try Titans again. And now I love it. Like, I got past that pilot, maybe because I had already seen it once. And now we're into the 3rd season, which just started coming out. And now it's kind of getting bad again, in my opinion. Like, I actually think back at season 1, all of season 2, I loved it. I was like hooked on it. And season 3 is really rocky, up and down for me. It's doing some weird stuff, and it's not quite what I'm looking for, but I want to stick with it because it's good enough that I'm invested in the characters at this point. I'm willing to ride it out and see if maybe it'll, the journey will be worth it when we get to the end of the season.
Well, Godspeed. I hope that they right the ship.
Well, I mean, it may just be me. Like, it may be amazing, but it seemed
not to your taste.
Some odd choices for my taste. But a couple of news things I need to touch on really quickly. Of course, AcadeCon. Could not go through an episode without dropping AcadeCon news. We are still having AcadeCon in person November 5th, 6th, and 7th at the Dayton Convention Center. I have signed a contract, so I will be there because I have to pay the money if no one shows up. So I will be there, even if no one else does. Though it actually does seem like we're going to have probably around 200 people. I was really hoping for like 300.
Oh, wow.
I think we're probably going to come closer to 200 this year. But if you're willing to travel or you're local to Dayton and you want to come play some games at a small convention, smaller than even usual, with some amazing people, please consider coming out and supporting us and helping us out. We are not requiring vaccination status. We're encouraging everyone, please get your vaccination. I have mine. My wife does. My kids do the moment they are able to get it. But we are not requiring it only because I have been to a convention that requires it, and this is not any sort of slight on them, but it's kind of a joke. Like, they're like, show me your card. I could have shown them anything. They're not going to know. I could easily print something off the internet in 2 minutes that would look like a vaccination card. And I would rather people just not show up if they're concerned than to show up thinking they're going to make sure there's no one here without a vaccination. And I'm like, I mean, we'll do what we can. So that's why we're not requiring it. It's not that we don't believe in it. I don't believe I can police that well enough to justify saying to someone, I'm going to make sure that everyone's vaccinated when I really can't prove that. But we will be masked. Dayton has a mask mandate, so everyone will be masked the entire time. So we at least got that going for us. But if you are not willing or able to travel and you would still like to support AcadeCon and play some amazing games that weekend, we are actually having an online companion event called AcadeCon Online. Gotta love that. The same weekend, November 6th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. A friend of the show, Luke Hare, is actually sort of heading that up for us. He's submitted.
And he's a great guy.
He is. He's been on the show a couple times.
Sorry, I'm a friend of Luke. I like Luke.
Yeah,
so
he's
I
again,
give him the rub.
Been on the show before. We'll probably be on the show again. And he's heading that up. He will be sort of running that the weekend. So if you want to play some virtual games, you can do that. There is a small fee for the badges. And honestly, that's just to kind of help support AcadeCon, because this year's going to be, it's probably going to be a financial loss if we're being honest. So this is just a way to kind of help us out a little bit as well. But same weekend, November 5th, 6th, and 7th. If you go to tabletop events, you can search for AcadeCon. We'll probably find both of them, but one of them is AcadeCon, one's AcadeCon Online. So the one with the longer name is the online version. Action 12 Cinema. I got my edits back from my editor, and they were a lot of what I expected. I have no sense of grammar. Again, I'm a product of the Kentucky educational system, so the fact that I speak English at all is pretty much a miracle. But for the most part, it was, comma splices, weird capitalization mistakes. I love throwing dashes and M dots in sentences that don't need them. But there were only a few actual, this section doesn't make sense, or this isn't really saying what you think it is. And I have another vacation coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to take that vacation and get the new revision done. But once again, no one has actually come forward and said, Michael, this is a waste of time. You're an idiot. Why are you doing this? So until they do that, we're going to keep moving forward. And right now, the timetable is probably middle of next year or Kickstarter. That's the plan. So hopefully, we're going to be close to that. I'm hoping earlier in the year, but my editor's like, it's your first game. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
But Michael, isn't having a bunch of grammatical errors well within the spirit of bad movies, which the game is an engine for creating?
Yes.
I believe it was, I was just thinking about B movies with famous grammar errors. I believe wasn't that the film Tammy and the T-Rex? I think it originally had I think it was called, I forget exactly what it was, but I think it was originally TAMY. So they actually misspelled the title of the movie,
yes,
in its original release. I always thought that was amazing, because what an amazing grammar mistake to misspell the title of your movie. Because it's one thing, okay, you're doing a crawl of the lore, at the but to misspell the title, that is a dedication to the bad movie arts. And I appreciate that.
I'm a big fan of How Did This Get Made? And they did an episode on that recently, and they actually covered that, because it actually has 3 different titles depending on where you're looking for it.
Yes.
Very entertaining. So if you like the podcast, How Did This Get Made, which you should, because it's awesome, Action 12 Cinema is absolutely creating a game that will create a movie that would be on How Did This Get Made. So look for that. Again, I'm going to be at Sin City. That's actually the other thing. I'm going to be at Sin City Con this weekend, running several play tests. The rules really haven't changed since last time, but I'm just trying to get better at like the pitch and organization. I'm still getting some feedback. I mean, I'm sure it'll get tweaked. But if you're going to Sin City Con this weekend, I will be there running games, and hopefully I'll see you there. So that was a very long extracurricular segment. So let's move in now to 10 things. This is our first improv game where we'll take turns prompting one another with a prompt of 10 somethings, and then whoever gets prompted has to try to come up with 10 examples that fit the prompt. The idea of the game is immediacy is better than accuracy. So coming up with a really fast list of 10 things that doesn't make sense is actually better than coming up with a list of 10 things that does make sense if it takes you too long. Geoffrey, you are the guest tonight, so would you like to go first, second, or third in terms of giving the prompt?
I will go second in terms of giving the prompt.
Okay, so that means you will go first in receiving the prompt. So
that's fine, because I want to get this out of the way. This is the part of the show that I am most apprehensive about. Let's see what I could do. And this may be a lot of nonsense, however I am.
I mean, that's kind of what we're aiming for here.
Fair enough.
So, okay. So you've shown your bona fides that you know some stuff about bad action movies, and that's something near and dear to my heart. So, Geoffrey, give me 10 bad action movies.
10 bad action movies. Hologram Man.
One.
Tammy and the T-Rex,
Two.
which does contain quite a bit of action in it. Mr. Pickles, Action Time.
3.
The dragon, the witch, and the bomb that exploded.
4.
Everybody knows Harry's a ninja.
5.
Surf ninjas.
That's actually a great movie.
6.
The Surf Ninjas 3. Return of the Surf Ninjas again. We've got hey, somebody defuse this dynamite, please.
8.
That's 8. We've got Hologram Man 2. Have you even seen the first Hologram Man? It's worth seeing. And 10, we've got whoa! Exclamation point!
10. Yay!
10.
Now here's the funny thing. See, I watch bad 80s movies literally all the time. I've watched tons of them. Every weekend I watch them with my partner. But when it comes to naming things off the top of my head, I have a very hard time doing it. So it was more nonsense than thing. But yeah, it's all right. Good. I'm glad to say.
I'm not kidding. I love the movie Surf Ninjas. It is absolutely a fabulous movie, and more people should watch it. All right, so Geoffrey, you now get to prompt Chris for his list of 10 things. Okay,
Chris. You are. Let's see. You are a seasoned outdoorsman. What are 10 things that you cannot do without on a camping trip?
Well, you have to have matches.
1.
A tent.
2.
Sleeping bag.
3.
Water bottle.
4.
Compass.
5.
Radio.
6.
Soap.
7.
Fishing pole.
8.
Deck of cards.
9.
And my favorite role-playing game.
10.
10.
Whatever it happens to be that week.
10 things. All right, let's close the loop here. Chris, what's my list?
All right. Let's go with 10 things you want to see happen at AcadeCon.
People show up.
1.
People I don't know are show up and buy badges at the door.
2.
A lot of people play games they've never played before.
3.
People buy things from the vendors who are there to sell things and make money.
4.
A weird rash of like 80-degree weather in November in Ohio.
5.
The barbecue place has a half off sale.
Ooh, 6. That'd be good.
The internet works there.
7.
The people who work there don't make me mad.
8.
Our banners get hung.
9.
Our banners don't get charged extra for being hung.
10.
10, yay!
Hey.
Those are some real grievances. Anyway, thank you both for playing. We actually do have a few people who have been watching. Please, thank you for hanging out with us. There'll be a section at the end where we take questions specifically, but if there's anything you want to comment as we're going, feel free to throw it into chat. But we're going to move into used books. So this is usually the kind of the biggest, meatiest part of the show. The idea here is that one of us is going to talk about a game or campaign that we either played in or ran, and looking for like lessons learned, things that went well that we have carried forward and have tried to repeat in other games, other campaigns, or maybe something that didn't go so well. We tried a new thing and it fell flat, and we learned to try to avoid it or maybe try to do it differently. So Geoffrey, you're the guest tonight. What game or campaign did you want to talk about, sir?
I'm going to talk about a game called Straight to VHS. See, when you talk about Action 12, I'm the target market for this game because I love role play games and I love bad 80s and 90s
You are, in
movies.
fact, the Venn diagram is a perfect example
Of this. I'm the perfect service. And I actually am a player on an actual play podcast called Worst Movies Ever Played. It's on the Starburns network with Harmontown and other comedy focused shows. So thank you. Yeah. And it's an actual play where we play a game called Straight to VHS, which has a similar premise, but to Action 12. It's about creating these role play games, but it came out several years ago. So it would be interesting to see what a new take on this would be. And you had talked about something very interesting when you talked about the features, which is that it's GM-less. And that's something I'd like to hear more about because this game does have a director. And I wonder if the dynamic of the movies would change if that weren't the case. But so yeah, let me tell you about playing Straight to VHS. So basically the premise of the show, the actual play, is the three of us, we're all comedians. We all love bad movies. And so every episode is a one shot where we are creating a bad movie from scratch using the system and we're playing it through. So we've done ones, did horror ones where like teenagers use witchcraft to create self-driving cars. We did one called Space Squad that is in no way a ripoff of a better known space star property. It is in no way, it is not similar to it, is legally distinct from another star property. So it's sort of like Battle of the Stars and a lot of those Star Wars things. Yeah. So I'll tell you about one of the games that we played. So I had this character. I was in a comedy troupe in college, and we did this. I would do this character sometimes for our videos that was sort of like an action hero. It was sort of a gritty action hero type who would talk through gritted teeth. And we would do, I did the show, we did it for years. I did it as, we did these videos with sort of parodying Street Fighter, and I did that character as like a parody of Guile. I did that. So I dressed up in like army fatigues and stuff. And,
hey, you and Dan have that in common.
Army fatigues?
No, basically a caricature of that character.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Do you do a caricature of like the action hero archetype guy?
No, I'm sorry. There's the movie called Street Fighter that Jean-Claude Van Damme was in.
Oh,
that was terrible. And he basically did a very bad characterization of the Guile character.
Yes.
I misheard when you said. I thought you said Chris does an impression. I was like, oh, Chris has one of these characters. Oh, great.
No,
yes.
Yeah. That was probably the Kentucky accent got in the way.
Oh yeah. Oh good. Yeah. So I'm very familiar with the Street Fighter. For you it was the most significant day in your life, and for me it was a Tuesday. Oh man, thank God. Wow, Raul Julia got to eat so much scenery.
Yes.
I just imagine him at the craft services table, like literally eating like pieces of the laboratory where they created Blanca. That movie is horrible. I could go for a long time.
I didn't mean to derail you. I'm so sorry.
No. I could absolutely talk for a long time about the Street Fighter movie. So I would do this character, and then I brought him back when a couple of years later for a viral video that I did in early YouTube. Was doing some early YouTube comedy stuff, and we did a video called Bank Codes, where I play a guy who's sort of like a Liam Neeson-y type or Harrison Ford type, whose daughter has been kidnapped, and they want the bank codes. The kidnappers want the bank codes from me. And I cannot, for some reason, I am completely incapable of giving them the bank codes. So I'll have like, okay, I've got the damn codes in front of me. And they'll be like, okay, great, read me the code. It's like, oh, is that what you want me to do? And then I like eat the code. They're like, why would you do that? We need these codes. And it's like, I don't know, I got hungry. So when we started doing straight to VHS, I was like, oh, this is a good opportunity to bring back that character that's like that I have a lot of fun playing, this like dumb action movie archetype. So the three of us. So unlike a traditional D&D campaign where maybe the DM, decides where the story is going, the three of us decide together like what type of movie we want to make, and so we brought up like Chuck Norris, like we brought up like plane thriller, like Air Force One. But there's a lot of like sub Air Force One type movies. And there's certainly a lot of like Chuck Norris, like I gotta defeat the terrorists type movies. Yeah. So I was like, so I pitched that and we were like, yeah, that'd be perfect. It's literally like what the system straight to VHS is like designed for, because, combat is sort of a central focus. Lately, we've also done a lot of games where combat was not the focus at all. Like we recently recorded an episode that's like a Milo and Otis type movie, like a talking animal comedy, which is not necessarily what the system is built for. Although there are tropes that are like talking animals, so I guess maybe they were considering it. But I think when we think of the bad 80s movie, I think we think of the action movie that's typically like the one typically like the genre that we think of. So this is like a good opportunity to pitch that, to do that, to bring that character back. So Patrick is our director in the game. They call it a director. So Patrick is the director, and we start, and we're on this plane, and we're on Air Force One, and it turns out that my best friend, played by another comedian, Brent the third, we were army buddies together until he got killed, but they saved his brain and they transported his brain into Air Force One. So he is now a sentient airplane. And so I am hired, the plane can go on its own, but I'm hired as sort of the plane's bodyguard, just to be on the plane, just to make sure everything goes smoothly. And it turns out that there are terrorist stowaways, German terrorists in the plane. And so not only does my character have to defend the plane, have to stop these terrorists, but also has to defend my best friend, who is an airplane, and I can't let him die again. So one of the things that one of the tropes that I built into my character. So part of the way the game works is you pick two tropes. And the tropes give your character personality, but also gives your character like powers, so like an abilities. So it's sort of attached. So it's sort of attached to the character is these like abilities that you have. And one of the tropes that I thought was really funny, I still think it is an ability that's like sponsored. It's like sponsorship. Okay. It's like product placement. So the trope is that like your character is like a thin shill for whatever product it is. And so I thought, I thought that was pretty funny. And so I picked like a badass trope and sponsored trope. So I was like, well, what could be like what could be like a sponsor for this movie? And I was like, oh, you know what? I watch a lot of wrestling. I used to watch a lot of WWE. I switched over to another show, AEW. But on WWE, which is one of its target markets is like middle-aged guys, like, you know, and it's a lot, and you know, it's like it's show about like people fighting, and they have constant ads for Gas X and like Rolaids and stuff. So I was like, it would be really funny, I think, if this character was sponsored by a brand called Gut Toys, where you chew on them and it fixes your gut problem. So in this game, I get shot at a lot. And the thing is, in like a Chuck Norris movie, typically, you know, he avoids all he avoids all the bullets. You know, they can avoid all of them, or maybe they get one and it like nicks their arm or something like that. It's like, oh, my arm, you know. But what was happening was I was rolling very poorly, and so the ability of Guttoids is to like if I take Guttoids in the game, it like heals me. So what kept happening is in the game, it would be like, okay, the director would be like, okay, you got hit. And I was like, yes, I got hit in my guts. And it's like, oh, my irritated bowels. I better pop a Guttoid. Cures what ails ya. And because I kept rolling poorly, that keeps happening like over and over again. So it gets to be it gets to be pretty ridiculous that I've taken like all these bullets in my guts, and then I am like I'm fixing them all with Guttoids. We do the game, and we finish the game, and it's a lot of fun. And you can folks, you can listen to it at Worst Movies Ever Played. You can listen to how it goes. But the funny thing that happened was almost immediately, maybe a month or two after playing this character, I start having bad GI tract issues. Yeah, I went too method, and I guess part of me was like, maybe it was like subconsciously like realizing that like, you know, shit was going wrong, literally, and that like it was like affecting the character. It's like affecting my character choices. So I just imagine in like imagine in like another 5 years like playing this character again for something, but this time like, oh, he's got like rheumatoid arthritis. Like, it's just like this character is just going to get more and more like physically ill with like more and more problems as I get older. So anyway, that's a little bit about playing the game and about bringing back a character that I had dusted off, that I didn't think in college or even a couple of years that I would get an opportunity to play again. But it was a real pleasure to bring that character back and maybe change him a bit. Adapt him to me as a person. I'm changing, and the character is naturally changing too, which I think is interesting.
Right. So a couple things there that I'd like to maybe touch on. For one, there will be links in the show notes to anyone who wants to go check out the podcast. I'll make it as easy as possible. And then I've never actually heard of Straight to VHS. I should have. It sounds like a game I probably would like to play, and I definitely have to look at it now that my game's closer to being done to make sure it's not like the same game. Where can people find that game? That's
at Lost Cat Games. Okay. It's interesting. I'm not sure exactly what the status of it is. It came out I think it originally came out in 2016, 2017, but I think there's a relatively newish version, I think, that came out in 2019. He's really nice, the guy, Ryan Mellon, who developed it. He's really cool guy. They changed the game significantly in its update. They turned it from a D20 system to a dice pool system with D6 dice. And it really affected the game dramatically, because in the early episodes, you'll see we die constantly, which is very strange for like these kinds of 80s movies. Typically, the lead characters don't die, but we die like all the time. I think there was maybe some feedback that they had gotten was that it was really easy to get killed in this game. The dice pool system, and they made the health broader for characters. So it now with the new system, we don't die quite as much. But we do die still on occasion, and we always make fun. In one game, the character dies, and then I like come back on a motorcycle as like the character's brother, and like identical twin brothers. Like,
too.
Right, yeah.
All right, so yeah, I'm gonna have to get a copy of the game and check it out. So Chris, I guess the thing that I thought was pretty interesting is the idea of bringing a character back. So to make this, because like your journey, Geoffrey, was a little bit different because it's more like an improv comedy routine bit that it inspired the character. But it's something that I don't know that I've ever done is to like play a game with a character and then maybe play a different game, or maybe years pass and then bring that character back to a new game. And I think that would be very interesting to experience because, like you said, you are a different person now. And a lot of times when we make role-playing game, characters, they are our avatars. They are our avatars into the game. And yeah, I mean, I might play someone who's radically different than me, but there's still something about me that wanted to play that character. And that may have changed. So I guess I'll just ask you, Chris, have you ever had that happen either as a GM, gamed your friend, or as a player where you played a character, had a character in a game, time passes, and then you bring that same character back to a new game, new experience?
I have. Back in college, we played a first edition game, and I played the big lizard man warrior Kith, who is trying to become the greatest warrior for the Kingdom of Teutonia, I think is what it was called. And I brought him back in 4th edition. Completely different feel. Just the game mechanics changed the character completely.
Dictate that, but like, do you feel like you changed in those intervening years so that your portrayal of the character had evolved?
A little bit. I think I was actually a little bit better at role playing later.
Probably.
I think I'd polish that up. Part of it too is a different game master, so completely different setting. Couldn't quite capture the feel of the character because he was a little brash, a little bit rude, and a little quick to punch something.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite barbarian rage, but he was quick to go, "Oh, are you challenging me? Well, slap. Challenge over." And at the table the second time, that's just not how the other players wanted to play. So it made it a little different. The first group, it was nice because I had a couple players who wanted to play the intermediate person going, hold on. Don't punch somebody yet. Let me finish talking. Yeah, okay, go ahead and punch him now. Right. So that made for some really good role playing. Actually, one of my favorite role playing moments ever was with Kith the first time, where one of the other guys was playing a wizard. I'm playing the fighter, and we debated in character for about 2 hours in real time about how my character thought it was stupid that you cast a spell and forget it when he never forgets how to swing a sword. And the magician trying to explain to him, well, no, I can gain power, but I only have a certain amount of power. Again, my character going, well, I never run out of sword arm power. Like, this is silly. It went on for like 2 hours. It was a lot of fun. And it was really neat because it was him trying to explain to my character who, I mean, he wasn't the brightest light bulb, what magic is, and he just couldn't grasp the concept.
Right.
Like, this just is not fun. Trying to capture that feel later with a different table, it wasn't the same for me. Trying to have those moments, people were just like, you're a fighter, go punch something, or wait till we tell you to punch something. So it definitely wasn't the same. I was hoping for the same kind of feel, but Kith led to a lot of really neat role-playing moments where the party had to kind of work their way out of political situations that, again, punching things quick got us into trouble, but yet it also helped us get through the door sometimes. So it was neat.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that you adapted the character to the play style of the group. I think that's really cool. I mean, it shows like a receptive, especially as a DM, it shows like a real like receptiveness, because I think there are some DMs who would just be like, this is this is who Kith is. This is always who Kith will be. Kith always punches, you know. And but you recognize that for your group, that wouldn't have been fun. That would have weighed on them. And so you adapted. Yeah. You adapted the character, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I just changed it from he's going to punch something to looking at the face of the party going, come on, let's go. Remember, we have a mission. We're late. You know, more one-track mind versus just punching everything. So
that actually brings a question I think is interesting. Is would it then be more appropriate to have created a different character? Because like, is that truly Kith if you've changed the character? I'm not saying you shouldn't. I think it makes sense to modify your play style for the table you're in. But at that point, are you actually playing the same character, or is it just the same name?
No, it was the same name. It definitely wasn't the same character.
Oh wow! But it felt that different.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like I said, a big difference was between first and fourth edition, and the group. The group I played in college, we would take a little bit of pride in the fact that we could play for 3-4 hours and never roll dice. Mm-hmm. Where when we switched over to fourth edition, it was if I go more than 3 or 4 minutes without rolling dice, something was off. It felt like. I'm exaggerating that a little bit, but it wasn't quite the same feel. Different players, different style, different table.
That by the way, that happens with us in the podcast. So I'll realize that I'll play it back and I'll realize like, oh, you know what? Like it's been like 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in, and like nobody has rolled dice. And sometimes I'll actually go back and like record like a quick scene of a dice roll at the beginning just to make sure that people know and understand like the mechanics of the show and the game, to make sure that people actually get it. But yeah, I think when you're really into a role-playing game, some of the mechanics can just go by the wayside because you just get so invested in the characters talking to each other, which doesn't require any role playing. Like you're saying, like the debate that you two had, like, which I'm sure was really entertaining to watch. Like, it doesn't require dice roll unless you want to be like, all right, let's see if you convinced me that, that my magic is weird. It's like, okay, roll your intelligence against his, constitution or whatever to see if this debate could continue. But I find that really interesting that can definitely happen. I've had those sessions.
To like play styles and like what people want from the game, because for some people the fun is the success, and for others it's the journey. And in that case, it's just the fact that we're talking in character is fun for us. So yeah, you don't need rules for that. Like at that point, you may argue, are you even playing D&D because you're just basically doing an improv exercise in that framework? I would still say that it's D&D because I think D&D encapsulates that as well. But for some people, it's not fun unless there is a winner. Like, what was the point of the conversation? Was it to convince one or the other that you were right or wrong? Or was it just the entertainment of having the conversation was the point? Your mileage may vary, but I'm more in the camp of just the conversation being entertaining is the point. So let's just enjoy that.
Well, you take something like World of Warcraft, right? Like, yeah, you could win World of Warcraft, you beat bosses in World of Warcraft. But there's also people who just like learn a craft. They just like, I'm just gonna learn to like bake in World of Warcraft. Then they like bake in World of Warcraft, and it's just like a baking game. And I don't know, is there a winner if you bake a lot in World of Warcraft? Like but it is a game. Like there's at the very least, it's like interactive entertainment experience. Mm-hmm. I think that the thing that makes D&D, even if you're not actively, battling, is the structure of the lore. It's the structure. It's the character sheets that give your character structure of like, okay, this is, what does it mean if I am a human wizard and you are, a barbarian dwarf? It's like, what do we mean to each other? Like it comes with so many there's just so much there that's different. It's not the same as like going up at an improv show and being like, we're in a McDonald's. It's like, and it's on fire. You know, there's all this like structure. So even if you just decide to like goof around and have fun, you're still definitely playing within the world. You're just playing the way that your group wants to play, is how I see it. So I'm similar to you, Michael.
So you actually mentioned that did remind me of one instance that kind of fits this prompt. This was right when 4th edition was coming out. Again, I had kind of gotten out of the game for a little while. I had moved. I didn't have a gaming group. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to play again. So I kind of had gotten rid of my books, thinking, you know, I'm older now. Like, I don't know if this is something I'm going to do anymore. And then 4th edition hit, and I decided just to be like, yeah, it's interesting. I'll check it out, you know. And I really liked some of the things that the 4th edition book did. And I've talked about it many times. I have weird opinions on 4th edition. I don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of people do, but it also got kind of tired of it after playing it for a little while. But it brought me back into the game. It reinvigorated my love for the hobby. So for that, I will ever be grateful. So I went to a game store when 4th edition came out because I didn't have a gaming. I went to there. They did some like play tests, and I kind of got into like a weird sort of store ran campaign. And I started playing a character called Etok, which was a barbarian, and very similar to Kith. I'm the absolutely punch it first, don't worry about questions later type of barbarian. But the game at the store wasn't a lot of fun. I really wasn't enjoying the people I was playing with, and you know, I think I probably even missed sport. So I eventually started a group sort of off of that. Like I found a couple people that were like-minded and that would seem more interested in role play, and we kind of created our own group and I sucked them away from the store. And so I wanted to play Etok in that group. So I basically recreated Etok for a different group. But he really was the same character. I just got a chance to play them a little bit more and sort of flesh them out. And then that game didn't last very long either. It eventually fell apart. So I don't know that there was like a difference other than I didn't feel like I'd gotten Etok out of my system. Like I wanted to experience Etok, and that game where I created them, I played 2 or 3 sessions and it just wasn't what I wanted. And I had a lot of fun with Etok until he died, because Etok was the punch first, ask questions later, and I think there were like we were in like huge cavern, we were on these stilt-like things, and it was so far down you couldn't see the bottom. And Etok's like, I'll just jump between them because that's what Etok would do, and I didn't roll very well. So that was the end of Etok.
Yeah, I've definitely played a lot of characters who are like that, like have a barbarian attitude, basically, who I love it because I love a character who acts on instinct. I think they're really fun to play. You know, I don't want a character who is smart because then I have to actually like figure out like, okay, like what is like the smartest thing. I kind of just like, oh, I have a character who acts on instinct, so let me just figure out what their instinct is and play like true to their character. And like that's why I don't think of, because I do a lot of actual play, like I don't even think of like role play games as like a thing you win anymore. Like I feel like you win if you've created an entertaining experience. That to me is like the victory scenario. And characters who act on their instincts, who are like deep in their characters, I have definitely like been like, oh, this is probably a bad idea, but I should definitely do it because this is without question what this character would do. For sure. So yeah, I could definitely relate to that.
So that takes me to a different avenue. I'll ask you two, because I have an interest. I think is an interesting answer, and I'll see what you think. So I do think that those players, those characters, those instigators, the ones who do things, as a DM, I love those characters because they keep the game moving. As a player, I sometimes wish other players wouldn't do that, because I'm trying to sort of slow things down, and I want to figure things out. I want to be that super smart, not instigator, like investigator, and like solve the mystery rather than just kill everyone in the room and assume one of them was a murderer. Problem solved. So how do you two feel about that? So Chris, as a player or as a DM, do you have an opinion on other people playing those types of characters?
As long as the table's good with it, I'm okay.
Okay.
But if you do have players that are trying to develop a good scene and somebody else is just constantly jumping in the pool, I'll call it, and I'll explain that analogy in a second. But if you're always just basically jumping in the pool and ruining somebody else's scene, then I want to say, please stop. Like, we're developing our fun. You can still have your fun in the middle of it. Or with us. You don't have to change the character so much, but just maybe he finds a shoelace untied before you jump in the pool. Give yourself 2 seconds to let us kind of develop the scene. And the reason I say jump in the pool is I think it was AcadeCon 3 years ago. I can't remember exactly. I was running a Feng Shui game, and one of the players is communicating through a pool of water to a spirit to basically get the answers to how to beat the big bad guy. But one of the other players went, I jump in the pool. And like the whole table looked at him like, really? Because he doesn't have all the information. He's like, yeah, I'm bored. I jump in the pool.
Yeah.
And it completely ruined the whole scene for not just the player that was like having his moment, but the rest of the table. Like, it got real awkward for a moment.
Yeah.
That's why I would caution people, if you're going to play that guy that wants to punch things first, make sure it's the right time to punch something first.
Yeah, it's a like an improv, it's a yes and. You don't want to be, you don't want to be up on stage and be like, we're at a McDonald's, and then the other person comes out and says, no, we're not. We're on a spaceship. That doesn't, you haven't built a scene there, But if the other person
on a spaceship,
then it's like, oh, okay, then we're building together, I think in any adventuring party, there's room for somebody who, punches first and asks questions later. But you have to be it sounded like that player was specifically like trying to tank the game because they wanted to do something else, and everybody else was into it. And that's not being a good player. That's not yes-anding. That is just trying to, sabotage the game. And, the point isn't to sabotage. The point is to, play your character like everybody else to the best of their abilities. But in answering your original question, Michael, I do some game design, and I actually have a project that just came out recently that I'll talk more about later on in the show. But as a designer, I try to always think about, like, what does this type of player want, and what does this type of player want, and what does this type of player want? And especially true in a combat scenario. I always think, okay, like, there's going to be characters in this party who are really good at combat, who have, like, they want to punch, they want to fight, but then, like, let me give something to, like, the player who is like an investigator. And, like, maybe there's a way that the investigator could find something that would really help them defeat these monsters, or could find something like a hidden treasure in this encounter, And for the social players, like, yeah, is there an opportunity to talk, like maybe at the beginning or at the end of this, wherein they can feel like, oh, it's okay, where I just have to hit them with my staff and that's it, like, where they feel like they can shine. So I think if you can, as a designer, if you can offer those moments to your players, then, like, people will feel satisfied, sort of like building a jungle gym. And it's like, well, some kids are going to want to slide. Some kids are going to hang on the monkey bars. Some kids are going to want to go into those tubes. They always have those tubes. Mm-hmm. So some kids want to go to those tubes.
I was a kid that did the thing that nothing was designed for. I would, like, climb on top of the monkey bars or hang off the side of the swing.
Right. Yeah, which is fine, fine. It wasn't designed for it, but it accommodates it, right? So it's cool. So as long as a designer, if I'm thinking about that, I'm always trying to be conscious of that.
So we went in some pretty big circles there, but just for the sake of time, we're going to cut things off there. So we'll throw it out to the audience. If you have any thoughts, examples, anecdotes to share about bringing a character back to the table, about a kind of an odd place you got inspiration for a character, again, like in Geoffrey's case, like a completely different medium that you then brought into the role-playing space, please share those with us. You can hit us up on Twitter at the RPG Academy, or comment on this episode when it releases on the website. There's a comment section. You can leave something, or email us at therpgacademy@gmail.com. But we're going to move into our second improv game, and this is Where Have My Fingers Been? And this is where we're going to each take turns prompting one another to create a short scene involving two-ish individuals that we will mime out with our finger puppets, and we will try to act out that scene with a beginning, middle, and end, though I often try to leave out at least one of those. Geoffrey, once again, you are the guest tonight, so would you like to go first, second, or third in terms of doing the show, putting on the puppet show?
I will go first. I will do the puppet show
You
first.
do the puppet show. Okay.
I'm getting my fingers ready here.
Chris, do you have something top of mind? Do you want to prompt Geoffrey?
Sure.
You come up with something?
Sure. I'll go with I think we've mentioned it a few times. You're stuck in a McDonald's that's on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm trying to break the glass door, but it won't break. Oh, well, hold on. Maybe we could get that Grimace statue. Let's get that Grimace statue and let's use it as a battering ram to get through the glass. Okay, all right, hold on. We'll get it together. Oh, wow, that's heavier than I thought. I thought it was just cheap plastic. No. They really make these things too hard. Okay, ready? Oh, okay. I don't know if I'm going to be able to carry it that far. We're going to have to because this McDonald's is on fire. All right, 3, 2, 1. The plexiglass broke a tiny bit. Do we really have the strength to do this again? We got to, or we're gonna burn alive like these with these McGriddles. 1, 2, 3. All right, it cracked. Tiny bit more. Almost got it. Okay, one more time. We got this. Don't lose your grip on the giant Grimace statue. We're gonna get it. 1, 2, 3. Oh my God. There's glass everywhere. We're gonna crawl out. 2 fingers crawling out. We survived. That's
Yay!
They did it.
They
did it.
All right, fantastic. All right, Jeff. So we forgot to sing the song. What the heck am I
I was just gonna say that.
Oh no!
my God! So
That's right.
we got to do it over.
We'll get
Doesn't
on the
count.
next one.
No, I'm just kidding. I won't make you sing that. So now you get to prompt me because I will circle up Chris, but I will sing the song. Can't believe I forgot. My apologies, New York Tater. I know you're not watching now, but at some point you'll listen to this and you'll be mad at me. I am sorry. Mm-hmm. Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been? All
right, so I'm prompting you for this one.
Yep.
Your fingers are both droids. And you are looking. One of you is shut down, and the other one is starting you up for the first time ever. So you're just coming online for the first time.
Are you my mother? Yes, and that's where my fingers have been.
Great. I did like a whole play for some reason.
No, that's part of my gimmick. Is I try.
You like to keep them short.
Yeah,
short and sweet. All right,
enough.
Chris. Both of these are space themed, sort of.
Wait.
I'm thinking out loud. All right.
Oh, okay.
All right.
But I gotta do the song. All right. Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
Your fingers are just coming off stage from an improv show that went terrible, and they're each blaming the other.
Oh, yeah, it's close to home.
In space.
Right here. In space.
Yeah. It's a space improv show.
I can't believe you made that joke about the Emperor. I mean, he was here. Like, do you know what happens when you make a joke about the Emperor? Yeah. You get promoted. No, you don't get promoted. You get demoted. You're going to end up on, like, I don't know, an Imperial podcast or something like that. What? A pod? Yeah, that's where our future is. Good job. If you had just done it right and not made fun of the Emperor, we wouldn't end up on a podcast. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, let's go to the bar. That's where my fingers have been.
That's where your fingers. Yay!
There's always a bar, even in the space improv. There's always a bar that sells chicken wings, and they're not good. It's like bad chicken wings for a lot of money. But they always get the business from after the space improv. So
You have to get one of those little red lights that says recording in progress.
I like that.
For those that can't see, my kid snuck in and I thought he was going to say something. So I kind of paused for a second and just realized he's going to bed. He could have just
going
waved.
to bed.
It's fine. All right, so with that, we will move into the last part of the show here, and this is cryptozoology, and this is where we're going to talk about a creature or a monster, often from D&D, but doesn't have to be, and discuss ways that maybe we have used this creature in the past, and maybe brainstorm some ways that we could use it in the future. Geoffrey, once again, you're the guest tonight. What creature do you want to talk about?
I'd like to talk about pixies.
Pixies!
Yes.
What? Yeah, it's interesting. This is one of those creatures that some people play at. They make characters. They want to play as pixies, and I don't blame them. I love pixies. I think they're great. I actually built them into as a major part of a recent one-shot campaign that I published on DM's Guild called Target Run. And I love pixies because I love that they're pranksters. I think that's great. And I love that they're fashion obsessed. So they're like social media monsters. They're like, they definitely, like, if there's any monster that is going to have a YouTube channel or like an Instagram account, it's the pixies. And I think that's really cool. I love that they have like all this innate magic, that they have like these powerful magic abilities, but they only have one hit point. So they are, in theory, they're really easy to kill, but because they're pranksters with high magic ability, they're not. And it's I think that's really cool design. I think that's really fun.
Nice. So for the 5th edition version of the Monster Manual, they are on page 253. As you already kind of indicated, they literally have one hit point. They have a fly speed, low strength, high dex. They have magical resistance, innate spell casting, and superior invisibility. Basically, they don't want to be seen, they won't be. And then in the lore, it does talk about that they are very fashion conscious. They're pranksters. They will often prank people and then kind of gauge their reaction. And if they seem to be sort of angry or violent, they'll disappear. But if people take their pranks good-naturedly, they might approach them and offer them help and aid, maybe help them navigate through a forest of some sort. So, Chris, have you ever used pixies in your game? I don't know. Is there a Star Wars equivalent of a pixie?
No. But I've run other stuff. So I have, but I did it more as a NPC for the party.
Okay.
Because they had to escort the pixie through the forest because she was the queen of the pixies and was going to help save the forest. And then through it, and I can't remember what game system we were playing, but pixies had the pixie dust that I kind of stole it from Willow, where if it gets on somebody, they fall in love with them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the players decided to go through her stuff, and well, he fell in love with her, and it turned into a real kind of a weird tragic comedy type thing. It was definitely much more role playing. It wasn't anything to do with combat. It was just to drive the story. I've never used them against the party, just because the one hit point to me, I guess, unless you send a flock of them after them,
yeah.
I want to say it feels a little anticlimactic when you just hit something once and it falls down. But that's just kind of my theory on it.
Oh, I agree, but I think they definitely seem. I always think of them as traveling in packs. I never think of like it's like one pixie. It's like we're looking at like a bunch of pixies, and like they are very, they can confuse the party. They can do polymorph. Like they can be invisible. And they're really good at being invisible. So it's like on the one hand, yeah, it's like in theory you should be able to like smack it like a bug, but like if the pixie is really on top of their game, like they could really mess with you. I think that's what they're designed. I think this is what they're designed to do, is like to mess with you, like make you really like, why can't I kill this thing that's messing with you? So I think that's really funny and fun. It offers a nice change of pace.
Yeah, it's definitely not a combat encounter NPC in my mind. It's definitely like setup, story, role playing. Though I probably would take some of the lore from just more mythology lore that pixies, they may only have 1 hit point, but if I were to use them, they probably would be unkillable unless you have like cold iron or magical weapons. That 1 hit point is more of a, all right, I'm done with you. If you hit me with something, I'm not going to play with you anymore. I'll go away, rather than actually killing them.
Right.
And I don't think it's pixies specifically. I think it's more just fae. But do either of you watch the show Supernatural?
Yes.
No, I don't.
So there's fae in the show, and one of the things that they've established, I don't know if this is from folklore or not, but apparently if you pour salt in front of a fae, they are compelled to like sit down and count the grains.
The grains of salt.
So that's one way that you can like trap a fae or determine if someone is a fae, is if you just pour salt out. If there's a fae in the room, they cannot help themselves. So if you think there's like, if things start happening around camp, like, people's shoes are going missing, their socks are thrown in the fire, then like you think, I think we got a pixie infestation, you could have someone pour some salt and then see if any of the pixies come running to pick it up or something. Like, I think that would be kind of a fun thing. But the element I'm drawn to is that if you take their tricks in like a good-natured spirit, they can become an ally. Where if you're trying to get through a place that is hard to navigate, the mysterious forest, the whatever, maybe you're trying to get into a fae realm and you need to know where the door is or when it opens, because it only opens if you eat a certain mushroom at a certain time, because you're not actually going there. You just trip the balls on acid, whatever. But I think that's how I would like to use pixies. So what about you, Geoffrey? You seem like you probably have used them before. Is there a specific incident? No? Specific instance. That's the word I'm looking for. Instance that you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So I'll have to set up a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about this game that I made, and excuse me, I've been like fighting these sneezes. It's very difficult. We're in hay fever season, and so I've been like fighting sneezes on camera. I hate it so much. Anyway, so in Target Run, which is a one-shot that I published on DM's Guild. So it's like a sports comedy, like Caddyshack or The Mighty Ducks. So it's a D&D sports comedy. And so there is a sport in the game. And so that the setting is called Overtop Heights. And it's this like elven spa where they play this game called Allagan, which is like an archery. It's like a team archery sport that it's sort of like archery meets hockey meets laser tag. And they play it at a very high level and they are the snobs in this world, right? And you are trying to break into the world of Allagan as a slob. So it turns out that the tree that the elves built Overtop Heights into was for a long time the home of this group of pixies. And the elves, when they came to build the spa, there was like a hermit who was living near the tree who was like, yeah, I own that tree. I own this land. And like, oh, so those elves like paid that hermit, but then they were like, but the pixies were like, no, you didn't buy anything. We own this. This is our land. Like, and they pushed them off the land. Now the pixies are non-violent. They're non-confrontational. They'll flee before getting into a physical altercation. So, but what's happened over the years is that these particular pixies have become a band of prankster revolutionaries who basically, when these Allagan games happen, they prank the players and ruin their games. So they'll like put players to sleep in the middle of the court. They'll like tie players' shoelaces together. They'll cause players to like float at like awkward times, or like cause their bows to like miss the shots. And there's a groundskeeper who is in charge of getting the pixies out. But the part of the game is determining it's like what you as the heroes decide you want to do. If you want to help the pixies overthrow the elves in this elitist country club, or if you want to join the elitist, you want to join because you want to join their game. So it presents like these interesting paradigm for the players. But it came to me because I was thinking like, well, in Caddyshack, there's the great Bill Murray and the Gopher, and like the Gopher like keeps like ruining this country. So I was like, well, what if could we make that more interesting? Like, what if it was like a group of people, like what if it was like more like people like adversaries, who could potentially wreck things up. And when I thought about the Pixies, I was like, oh, that'd be perfect, like a group of pixie prankster revolutionaries would be pretty rad. So that's how I've used the Pixies recently.
Okay. I actually think you kind of touched on how if there was any monster that would have like an Instagram account, I think that would be a fun encounter where it's almost like they are like influencers, and maybe there's like a particular pixie that doesn't have a strong following, or maybe they're losing their followers or losing their influence, and the PCs have to help them regain that in some way, either by pretending to be Uber fans and making like, well, if these people like this pixie, then maybe what don't we get? Or it could even almost be like a She's All That sort of like glam up situation. They take the one sort of dour goth pixie and like try to make them, more palatable, which we would learn the moral lesson that, being yourself is the best thing you could ever do. But that could just be like a fun little like one shot situation where it's not combat at all. It's just all role playing, trying to like help this pixie find themselves, but also find a following. Maybe that could be fun. Or
making over your.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, or making over your party.
Oh,
like you may have helped them in some way, and in return, like they're gonna like completely like they're gonna give you magical outfits, like they're gonna give you new weapons. So you're gonna have this whole pixie style. Yeah, PCs get the glow. That could be fun too. It's a makeover episode.
Yeah. I also
makeover game.
One pixie who's like a serial killer, and their practical jokes keep killing people. And so then,
man!
So it's like it should be innocent, but people keep dying. But there's no explanations. Like someone died in a locked room, and you're trying to figure out what the mystery is. But it's actually just this one pixie who just honestly is like a serial killer pixie. And so you have to go to the pixies, befriend them, and then find out who the perpetrator is, and then deal with that. Again, in a pixie who maybe can't be killed. So how do you get them? How do you capture someone who can turn invisible at will and can stay hidden, that kind of thing. So that would be the dark version. Chris, any thoughts on a pixie encounter before we move on?
Well, you were talking about using them as pranksters. Don't you worry, though, that players might get frustrated if their gears messed with, or what their goals are keeps getting interfered with by these pranks?
Well, I think that the way I designed it in Target Run, if you help the Pixies, they don't prank your team. They only prank the team of the All-Stars. So it's a good way to get like a leg up in the competition. If you decide not to help them when you realize that they really need help, then you do incur their their pranks. And so that is a disadvantage that you have to deal with. So could it be frustrating? I mean, absolutely. But it's also like, I think there's a table of like really funny and like interesting pranks. So I think it would be entertaining. And also like, because it's a sport, and it's kind of like a funny module, I think tonally it works. I don't think you would be like, I can't imagine a player getting super frustrated when when they're playing like a comedy sport, as opposed to if they were being pranked while they were fighting a crazy dragon or whatever that was about to eat them. And then there's like this pixie's like, oh God, what are these pixies doing? Why did they ruin, they're ruining this fight,
Right.
No, that actually would be really funny if like there's a pixie who like, I'll get you someday. And then like 10 years later in campaign time, he's fighting the ultimate elder dragon, and they go to draw their +3 sword, and it's made of paper mache. Like the pixie has changed their weapon right the night before. And they're just like, FU written on the blade and signed Pixie at the bottom. That would actually
I love
be
that.
Pretty fun. All right, so let's move on. We'll wrap things up tonight with our question and answer. I don't know if anybody's watching at the moment, so there may not be any questions, but I know there's also a little bit of a delay. So while we're waiting for anybody who has a question to answer one, Jeff, tell people where they can find you, and if you have any other products or projects you want to plug, just throw them in here. And again, if you'll give me those links, I'll put everything in the show notes to make it easy on people.
Awesome. Happy to do that. Well, you can always find me on Twitter at Geoffrey Golden. That's Geoffrey, like the giraffe, Golden, like the color. And I have a newsletter called Adventure Snack, where I write, remember the old game books, like the old Choose Your Path game books, or like Fighting Fantasy or Choose Your Own Adventure. I do micro versions of those, and I send them to folks via email. And it's free to play, and I do them twice a month. That's at adventuresnack.com. And yeah, Target Run, which I'm very happy to say is a #1 hottest comedy module on DM's Guild, which I was really excited about, debuted as a #1. And yeah, that's at you search for it at the DM's Guild Target Run. And yeah, that's me. Oh, and of course, if you were listening, but we were talking before about worst movies ever played, and that you can get that on any podcast player. Just put in those words, and you will find the show.
Fantastic. All right, Chris, what about you, buddy?
Every other week here, and then otherwise you can catch me on the Redemption podcast. If you want to talk to me on Twitter, is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Burlew_Chris. I warn people I don't check it every day, but at least every other day. And where are you at, Michael?
I am on Twitter way too much. You can find me there at the RPG Academy. Pretty much everything I do can be found there. We do have a Facebook page. A lot of times it's just duplicate posting. Whenever I think of something funny on Twitter, then I'll just go post it on Facebook at the same time. Really, again, hip deep in everything at AcadeCon right now. I have that vacation coming up very soon. I'll be updating Action 12 Cinema. So AcadeCon is definitely top of mind. The only other thing else I'll plug is Farm to Fable. Again, we're now middle of 3rd season. I'm rewatching Smallville, the CW, WB, Superman early years teen drama show
wow.
that I love for some reason. And, I'm absolutely having a ball. So much fun. We're slowly starting to get an audience. We're getting like around 100 downloads per episode now, which is a big deal for this thing. Again, it's just a little side project. And I have one person on Patreon. I set up a special Farm to Fable level on our RPG Academy Patreon. I have one person who's actually donating to the show, which makes me kind of giggle and smile and laugh all at the same time. But yeah, if you're interested in Smallville, go check it out. So that we will wrap things up. Thank you everybody for watching now or in the future. And again, the audience, audio only audience listening. Please go check out Geoffrey's stuff. Listen to his podcast. Find his game. Go play improv games or choose your own games with his newsletter. And at some point in time, maybe I can run a session of Action 12 Cinema for you online just to get your opinion, since you definitely played. You're the target audience. If I can't convince you it's a fun game, I might finally have the person to tell me it's a waste of time.
I would absolutely love to play it. It sounds great, right up my alley.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time. Everybody do the awkward wave out.
Wave out. Bye, everybody.
No. There we go.